So many things happen anymore so quickly in the fields of research and advances in techniques in the healing arts that it's hard to keep up. But one of the foremost researchers in this area with some of the best methods is our own Dr. Stjernholm, who spoke here last year, and he's here with us again today to bring us an update of what has happened and whatever he needs to or feels that he should bring to us this morning. We'll get him hooked up for his microphone, and then it's your opportunity to welcome Dr. Stjernholm. Will you please?
Thank you. Testing, 1, 2. Hear me all right? No.
Try it again.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. We're all right? Yes, it's interesting if we kind of try to keep up with things. Dean's a little mistaken. I think it's a couple of years since I was here. We did do a lecture last January in Tampa. So we'll run through a few slides real quick, so don't blink too many times. You might miss a few of them because I do want to review a few things with you. And but I noticed in just the Denver Post yesterday that the extreme stress can shrink the brain. So whatever you do, let's back away from some of that stress, and I'll key on that for a moment as we go through. And we do have a new milk substitute now. It isn't nice that we've allowed, our good FDA's allowed so much contamination of our blood by way of, or of our milk by way of the antibiotics and the hormones and everything else, the injecting the cows, the BGH hormone and all that. And I think it was Dr. Young that says that's causing the leukemia of all the cows. And then you add all the antibiotics to the inject into the cow because of the mastitis that the cow has from those hormones and all the rest. So now we have a milk substitute because we've done everything in the world to screw up that cow and the milk. Just like the chicken, you know, we create night and day, and so she'll lay a few more eggs, and by the time she lays the eggs, or before she lays the eggs, the salmonella's in the egg before the shell goes on, before she ever lays the egg. So we've done a good job of allowing everything to occur. I also have, you'll see a number of the slides, especially the baby's face, a tumor of blood vessels. You'll see it on the slides. A number of these colored prints are out there across from the registration desk. So we'll make those available to you. Some of these things are unremarkable. And then, of course, we've been using soft laser for years. We used to use 44 ultrasound. And I'll make a point, all energy works. Don't ever believe that it's just this, that, or whatever. We'll show you some things where it just exercise. I'm so thrilled when I hear the different ones make mention of the fact that I'm out here to find what else can be done. And just in the last month, would you believe the doctors here in Denver injected the drug into the cancerous tumor? They shined the soft laser light on it, and every time that tumor disappeared, the laser activated it. All energy works. Don't let anyone kid you. And if you're not getting up and stretching and do a little simple stretch like the cat and the dog, shame on you. So out there on the table is also some forced stretching exercises. Add to it. Don't do anything less. And I would like to add to, I don't have any connection with the company that teaches you to do that little traction from the door. I've modified it a bit, throw away the rope and the pulley and the spreader bar and all that. Just slip that thing on and hook it directly to the bar, and once a day come down, so little, so slow. And that's our problem. We're Americans. We've got to catch up with last week or last year. Slow down, for God's sakes. It's the cat and the dog that can teach us to slowly, gently stretch, 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 because there's a thing called the myotatic reflex. When you try to stretch that muscle, it's going to contract, and the only way the cat and the dog can outfox Mother Nature is to stretch that so slow it doesn't contract. So with all this hurry, 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 you're contracting those, you're triggering the reflex, and you're just like the weightlifters. Pretty soon, they're so petrified they can't even turn their head. They have triggered the fibrosis, the proliferation of the fibrous tissue, and now they're petrified. Slow down. God gave the animals a natural instinct to stretch. He gave us brains we don't use. So let's slow down and stop and do more to help ourselves do thus and so. Do we have the projector ready? So if we do, if not, I'll keep talking because I can talk all day. But it's just exciting to see what it is that we can do with our exercise and our stretch, and along with the other areas of energies. We do have the little soft laser available, the little portable now. You know, in the past, it's been somewhere in the neighborhood of $18,000 for the 18.8 scanners I use at the office, and we're down to less than $4,000 for the little little portable unit. There is a little one they're using for research now out of Colorado Springs with Dr. Crable for the carpal tunnel. And we'll talk about that carpal tunnel. I find it's one of those spots in the head of the radius and the elbow. There's always a little spur that forms coming off that head of the radius. Never do surgery. In fact, we had a little girl start yesterday. They've chopped on her arm 3 times. Now they want to amputate the arm on a 2-year-old. We also have a little 19-month-old. They gave her 3 drugs 11 times a day for profuse vomiting. And then they want to staple her stomach at Children's Hospital. She had a total of 8 or 9 treatments in my office, and we turned her loose. She's fine. So, you know, we're doing too many radical things with surgery. We're doing an awful lot of good things with when it's a crisis situation. But when it's a situation where it's natural, it's a little subluxation. One little girl, Desiree, tripped on the sidewalk, pulled the groin, just pulled a muscle. Spent 10 days at Children's Hospital in Denver, and then mother got so disgusted. We're in this room for 5 hours, over here for an hour or two, another room for an hour, and finally she gets so disgusted she picks up her child and walks out. I think with the first treatment the mother was so excited. She's 90% better, and with the second treatment she ran and jumped all weekend, and we turned her loose. Little stretch muscle. See, we have to understand some basics. So let's understand, first of all, there's a physical problem for your illness and disease. You injure, that childhood injury, those things catch up with us. There's also bad chemistry. When we have a physical injury, it's upsetting our internal chemistry. So we have to realize it works both ways, and add to that all this mental stress and strain of all the things that's going on, and it's a total picture. The physical, the mental, the emotional, and of course the bad chemistry within that's caused by that physical injury, or all of those nasty pesticides, insecticides, and all that that's having a direct effect on us. I think we're having a lot of research now where we're finding just how many of these diseases are caused by the very chemistry that they're spreading around us. We've known it for years, the insecticides, pesticides, and everything else. So with that, we'll see if we can get some slides rolling here. We have a little review here because it has been a couple years, but this is a little sweetheart that they put her 3 months old, and they put her in a, can we have a front light off here just please? They put her in a little harness, and we'll go to the next slide. Do I have the trigger? Do you have the trigger? Okay, there's the buckles holding the harness that holds the legs up in the air so she can't move. She's been in this thing for 2 months, and she's only 3 months old, which meant they put her in that when she was a month old. So we worked on that little one, and those are your buckles. And as a result, you'll see further pictures here as we go along. Where here we have the little hip is growing on this side, nothing on this side. And as we go along, both hips completely formed. And we turned her loose, and I'm happy to report today the little child is perfectly normal. In fact, Grandpa is losing his vision and also his kidneys, and just about 2 or 3 weeks ago picked up one of these portables so he can be doing therapy at home every day, 7 days a week. So we're seeing some phenomenal changes with the energy, whether it be the laser, the ultrasound, the microcurrent. All of these instruments work. It's energy. That's what it's all about. And I might take you back to Boyd's Pathology, page 97. It says if the intensity of that energy or that irritant is so severe, you will have degeneration and destruction. If it's less severe and more mild, you'll have overproduction of cells, fibrosis, scar tissue, and all that. And that inhibits the range of motion, the elasticity, and all that. And it's actually called scar tissue. So all we're doing is softening and stretching. Why should you go take another shot of cortisone to create more scar tissue? Sure, it may quit hurting, but it's a lousy way to correct the problem. You're not correcting a thing. You're causing yourself to put another foot a little closer to the grave. So soften and stretch, and gently stretch, stretch, stretch. Okay, so we can move right along. Do we have the right on along? I got to move real fast here. We have so many slides, but the hip is totally gone, totally normal. And here we have a lady. She had the 8 surgeries, and the hips are totally fused from all that surgery. Next one. And that one was out of sync for some reason, but go right ahead. This was the one we did with the hands. The hip was missing, and both hips are perfect. That was just my hands. So sometimes we don't need all the this, that, or it just does take longer. As I told the folks in Connecticut, you can walk home, you'll get there sooner or later. You jump on the airplane, you go get in your car because you get there quicker. You use your therapy, your energy, because it speeds up the process in today's technology. Next one, please. And there's a family, probably one of our famous, this picture in all the documentation's out across from the reception registration desk, but the boy's hit on the head with a soccer ball, develops a tumor in the neck. Next one, please. And you'll see all of that right on down. Next. And there's a tumor in the neck. That has all resolved itself in less than a year. So when you get a medical doctor like Leonard Burke calling to say I've read the 5 MRIs, you're doing impressive things with a soft laser, keep up the good work. Next. And there's a little daughter that hit her head, and red welts all over her ankles, knees, and ankles are swelled, feet are turned black, and all of that, and a little soft tissue work in the neck. Why did it affect the head, or did it affect the legs rather? Because the injury was in the neck. We're all one person, you know, the leg bone's still connected, the hip bone to the backbone, and all the rest, and so forth. And the next one. And we move a little faster. And this is a little girl right there that did it. And then she takes on the officials out here. They wanted to take down the cross off Mount Lido, and I'm real proud of the fact that little daughter took on the atheist, and the cross still stands, still burns out on Mount Lido. Next one, please. And she made a lot of noise over that, a lot of acknowledgement. Next one, please. And we have Maria. She's losing the use of the leg there. Next one. And that has all reversed itself with the use of the soft laser in less than a year's time. Next one. And this was Joan, back surgery, bone graft, and all of that. And after, I'm sorry, she didn't have the bone graft, she had back surgery. And yet, a year later, she has so much scar tissue, they can't help her. We did the laser 3 months, turned her loose. A year later, when she had a car accident, they can't find any scar tissue, epidural scar tissue, can't see where she ever had back surgery. Next one. So that's more of the same one right on down the line. Dr. Sedan, the orthopedic surgeon, he had the one treatment on the Achilles, and as a result of that, we had a thank you on Christmas Day a couple weeks later. Pain and swelling's all gone. Thanks to the laser, it's nice to walk without pain. Next one. 2 years later, next one, please. And had no problem with the Achilles since the laser treatment. The orthopedic surgeon for 35 years. The next one, please. And here we have the total collapse of the 2 cervical vertebrae. Next one, please. And we have complete regeneration, 85% regeneration of those cervical bodies. Next one. And we have a total calcification going on here. The next one shows the brain surgery, a little better where she had the brain surgery. You can see the tremendous regeneration of those bodies with that laser in 2.5 months, 48 laser treatments. Next one, please. And this was a fellow that crushed his leg with a clamp. Next one. And you can see the tremendous degeneration. They want to amputate. Next one. And as a result of that, you can see that same area, the 85% regeneration, sitting at home doing ultrasound 6 times a day, 6.5 months later. Next one. And there's your, this picture's out in the hall. If you'd like, take a copy. This was done in Japan, tumor of blood vessels. 39 months later, you can see the tremendous regeneration. We still have one extra light here we don't need. Next one, please. And there's the giant cell tumor of the wrist. And next one. And that's totally reversed itself. That was done with ultrasound. Next one. And this is a lady. She had not only fractured a foot, the metatarsal, big old mass there. In a few days, that was gone. In 7 days of treatments, and she walked the 300 steps. Plus, she had 2 surgeries for a leaky bladder, and she's so impressed. Her sister down in Louisiana, as this lady went to Mexico for a year, she loaned her laser to her sister. Her cataracts are gone, and she don't need the cornea transplants in both eyes. So we have some pretty good documentation. Next one, please. There we have the fracture that we talked about on her. Next one. And you'll see the tremendous healing in just those few days. Who says that somebody ought to tell the governor it don't take 6 weeks to heal fracture. And there we have a tremendous healing process. Next one. And here we have the degeneration of the big toe. Next one. And look at the reabsorption of that regeneration. We have a fellow in Elkhart, Indiana. He came in, his hands are totally eaten up. I think we'll run into him here. But look at that change in the next one. And here we have the fractures, the big chunks broken off of the transverse processes. Next one. And you see how those grew right back on. I'm just totally shocked that that occurred. You just can't believe what Mother Nature does for you. Next one. And here we have the globetrotter, the fracture, the proximal end of that. Next one. And look at the change there in 23.5 hours with 13 laser treatments. Next one. And here we have the fracture of the knuckle. Next one. Try and see where that knuckle was fractured. Phenomenal. Next one. Here we have a big chunk knocked off the humeral head. Next one. And in a week, she's back on her computer. One lady just in the last year shoved the shaft of this humerus clear up into the head. It's an inch shorter. She's driving her car in 3 weeks. She keeps scolding me because I wanted to say 3 months, but she keeps saying, no, it's only 3 weeks, Doc. Next one. And here we have the mass in the chest. And next one. That mass is all gone, and that was done with ultrasound down in Kentucky. So we do a lot of prescribing out of state. Here's a big old massive cardiac enlargement. Next one. And we shrunk that dude. He was supposed to have had a heart transplant. Next one. And here this fellow was, he came in, this whole left side of his lung was just white. I said, you ought to be in the hospital. I just got out. What happened? His buddy bent him over the kitchen sink, paralyzed his diaphragm. Thousands of dollars to the hospital, a few weeks of treatment, the diaphragm's working again. Next one. We had a misfeed. There we have the effects of contraction. If that muscle pulls hard enough, it can pull you down and bend you over and bring you forward. So muscles do contract, and muscles do cause distortion. One article I used in the other lectures, a kid overdosed on drugs and the seizure snapped his spine. Yes, muscles do contract. Next one. And there's in spite of a nasty curvature, this little lady was 87, bent over and put both palms flat on the floor that day and lived to be 101. So you don't have to be perfect. It's nice to be balanced, and I'm all for it. But if you're not, you've got to work with what you've got. Next one, please. And here we have the abnormal degeneration of the hip. This was one we didn't treat 3 weeks before we got him. They said he was okay down at a medical clinic on South Kipling. Go home and take your ibuprofen and stretch. And 3 weeks we got him, and that's all cancer. He's already had his leg removed. It wasn't my choice of treatment. Next treatment, or next slide, please. And here, again, lots of drugs, lots of prescriptions, but no one took an x-ray and found she had swallowed a straight pin. Next one. Straight pin. And a mother-in-law at that. I always kidded her. I said, nice thing I took an x-ray. I could have poked my thumb working on you. Next one. And there's a little boy with mongoloid or Down syndrome. We have one we turned around in the 60s as a newborn infant. This one's up in North Dakota. The pediatrician's saying it doesn't look like he has much sign of being a mongoloid. And they had him scheduled for open heart surgery. The foraminal valve wouldn't close. The last echogram, the hole in the heart is gone. Okay? Next one. And this is a fellow from Elkhart, Indiana. The knuckles are just totally eaten up. Nothing left. I said, well, I know laser is awful good for pain. He had 2 treatments, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. I didn't dare give him one every hour. And the next morning he sent $8,200 off to Canada for a laser machine to use at home. He's home chopping wood. His son was paralyzed from electrical injury, and last report was he's made his first 7 steps. So it's all energy, and I'm interested in the gentleman mentioned whatever else the chemistry we have that can help dissolve any of this fibrous tissue or wherever it be. Let's use it. Use those natural things, because I'm convinced the laser is making it, is activating it. Next one, please. And the abscess on the tooth, degeneration bone, and that's all reversed in 3 weeks with 7 laser treatments. Next one. That's after. Next one. And there's a report from Dr. Gardefee and so forth. Next one. And there's a complete regeneration bone around the teeth, and never do a root canal, never do a root canal. How dumb can we be? Destroy the life of the tooth, then they turn around and mess with Hal Huggins. Boy, it makes my blood boil. Next one. And endometriosis, and the minister's wife that brought me that, I didn't say she had that. Her OB-GYN did. I didn't say it was all gone. He did. But she brought me the buffalo pictures because her uncle painted those, and we raised buffalo for 20 years. Next one. And epileptic seizures, our favorite. Don't ever allow those kids to take all those drugs, turn them around. It's just an injury to the brainstem for the most part. Next one. And the mother's report on that. And the next one. And there's the tumor or the ulcer in the stomach. That's also outside, and the ulcer's gone. Next one. That was about 3 months. Our little beautiful girl with the nasty legs. Next 2 pictures, please. You can see how nasty those legs really are. Just a twisted hip. That little twisted hip was so bad, it pulled on the heart. It kept the hole in the heart from closing. At age 7, they had to do open heart surgery at age 7. And it also pulled so hard. Her left hand is smaller than her right hand. It pulled so hard it triggered the hormones. Her left breast is twice as big as her right breast. This is also outside for you. Next one, please. And the flesh-eating bacteria, isn't it amazing? We cut off the arms, the legs, and everything else. The day before this picture was taken, she came in. She had big blisters all over the arm, and she'd been in the hospital for 4 days. That was $9,000 of intravenous antibiotics. In 2 months, the bill was somewhere between $25,000 and $35,000. And I cured that in 5 days, 4 laser treatments, 2 elbow adjustments that we do for the carpal tunnel. And is it any wonder they'd like to have my license? Take the next one, please. And there it is on Tuesday after the next one. And there's the article went with it. We did manage to get, even Westward wouldn't do an article on that, even though we made the front page. Next one. And Bob Ozer, 2 surgeries, or suggested surgery rather, 2 discs are calcified protruding on the disc. Next one, please. And he reports it's all disappeared, no neurological deficit, no need for surgery. Next one. We prescribe knowledge, not drugs. Next one. And there's my group. You got to educate. So we got started years ago. This little monster, this big mobile unit led me into the 16 audits with the good IRS. And 10 years later, because I paid all the bills, did all the work, well, they denied the gift, so they went up in Wyoming, took about $230,000 worth of property, gave me credit for $25,000. They still want $200,000. We're just about to settle with them. But you noticed last week something good does come out of Congress. We can now sue the IRS for $1 million instead of $100,000. And feel good that there's real serious talk out there about getting rid of that IRS along with the FDA. Right. So let's do it. Let's do it. Next one, please. And this just a little bit, but here's the whole theme. I'm sure every one of you here, this is what the message is all about. You'd rather be involved in seeking an answer than to provoke another cause. The late Dr. Jancy, one of the greatest doctors in our profession, the late Dr. Jancy. And what price research? Isn't it amazing? We're so busy researching all this stuff. We're shoving all this garbage down you that makes you sick, and we're doing research to figure out why. It's so incredible, I can't hardly believe it. Next one, please. This man practiced for 50 years. Next one, please. And then again, like the late Dr. Palmer, you know, you create this irritation, those nerves, you've got to create the symptoms of pathology, of inflammation, and that's, you can't name one illness or one disease in that pathology book that did not start with an inflammatory process. the cardinal signs of inflammation. Next one. And again, the one book research paper back in, I did for Denmark. We traveled all over the world with the World Health Congress, and wonderful bunch of people, Antone and all the group. Next one, please. And even Bernie Siegel, read page 2 of the very introduction. On his deathbed, Louis Pasteur says, disease is in the soil. And this is the biggest message today. You don't catch a thing. You've got to provide the sick tissue for that bug to grow on. And that's the message. And until you do, and the only exception to that is a black widow, anything, the poisonous snake, that's the only exception. But you must lower your resistance before you can catch a thing. So, you know, they're still on the wild bug theory, and they ought to catch up one of these days. Next one, please. And again, there's what I just quoted. Next one, please. And again, isn't it strange, as I said before, these have to live in a certain type of situation. This is non-polluted, this is polluted. That's nature. What in the world's wrong with us? We can't understand that we're destroying ourselves with our chemicals, and certain things have to live in air, some things can't live in the presence of air. Cancer can't live where there's oxygen. It's so simple. Next one, please. And the 9 steps of illness and disease, and again, it just starts with that irritation, whether it be physical, chemical, emotional, produces that contraction, that produces that inflammatory process. And you call it itis this, itis that, tonsillitis, appendicitis, whatever. But what caused it? And as it turns hard and fibrous, nothing works, you call it illness and disease, or you call it disease. You see, it's a pathological process. It's that simple. And next one, please. And even over in Italians say, you know, it don't even have to be a clot. The muscle pull can cause a tear, and you have a clot, and you call it a heart attack, you see. So we have no idea. Work on the inside of that left hip, find the upper point, get inside there, and there'd never be a pacemaker ever sold if you'd work on that spot with that muscle pulling on, tugging on the heart. Next one, please. The only exception I've seen to that, one kid came in about a year or so, 2 years ago. His ribs were just arched on the right side where that neck injury had pulled up on those ribs. It pulled so hard there was a bulge on the right auricle of the heart. I sent him over to the cardiologist. Of course, it only took him 5 months to wake up and understand what I was trying to tell him. They did emergency surgery and said he wouldn't have lived 1 more week. And with that aneurysm in the right auricle of the heart itself. And here it is. Dr. Robert Salter says all you got to do is stretch it so gently. He injected the chemicals, caused the osteoarthritis, put the rabbit's leg in passive motion, moved it so slow, total regeneration of every cell. Next one, please. This was the next one, please. And exercise, this is Robert Salter, the one I just mentioned. So slow, so gently, you'll regenerate every cell, cartilage and all. Cartilage does regenerate. It's fed through the synovial fluid that lubricates a joint. We have so many brains we don't realize every living cell must be fed, period. Cartilage in every cell regenerates. Next one, please. And there's the exercise outside. For goodness sakes, get up, put your foot on the stool, but don't tear the groin. Now you have an inguinal hernia. Now it will be time for surgery. Nice and slow. Stretch the front, stretch the back. A few simple rules at the bottom. Don't make it sore. We were taught no pain, no gain. How silly can we get? Soften and stretch gently. You have a built-in warning system called soreness. Don't you dare make it sore. Next one, please. Then you catch the upper, you roll those shoulders, and be sure you roll this, make the shoulder blades move. The little arm don't count. Make the shoulder blades move, sit and twist, and be surprised you woke up some cells that you haven't moved for a long time. Circulation. Next one. And the immortal cell, this guy is phenomenal. He tremendous credentials. You're doing all this research on cancer is total fraud because you're studying an artificial situation in a petri dish. Next one, please.
Who is that?
Dermer. Electric shock is inhumane. Sure, you scar the brain and that's supposed to help you think better. Nonsense. It's the most cruel, unscientific monster. It's out there and they're still doing it today and think it's great. Next one. And we cut the brain in two, my favorite epileptic seizures, and this is all they've got to offer. Next one, please. And there's the first little girl that was a mongoloid as an infant. She's normal, has been for years. Next one, please. And Alzheimer's, isn't it strange? I would argue that if Ronald Reagan took that little harness, the orange sheets out there will teach you to stretch that brainstem. I would argue if Ronald Reagan, President Reagan, had done that 20 years ago, he wouldn't be wearing hearing aids. and he certainly wouldn't have Alzheimer's. We're turning Alzheimer's around right now. Next one, please. And the Methodist Church injured the babysitter, 5 months old, blood coming out her ear and all that. And 9 years old, she was still having seizures, and we sent her with an ultrasound. 3 months, she's doing fantastic, no seizures. Next one, please. That's the back page. Tests were run again. This, when they did surgery, God didn't put the tube in the bladder in the right place. They had to move it. Nonsense. Didn't do a bit of good. A few treatments, she's okay. Next one. And that's some mother's letter regarding that, giving her the very drug that causes kidney problems. Next one. And the old MSG hormone, you all know about, or MSG syndrome, I meant to say, and it's in everything. You don't think they're trying to make us sick. Why are they putting MDP in the gas and the monosodium gluconate, now olestra, the fake fat? And the cities where they're testing it, they call them diarrhea city. And the FDA says, you know, we know it causes diarrhea. Doesn't that tell us the body has you're giving the body a poison? That's why the body creates diarrhea, to get rid of the poison. Next one, please. And my favorite makes me disgusted. My nephew's on this ship, a nuclear sub. We dump nuclear waste everywhere we go. Next one. Next one. Mm-hmm. And Hillary got caught up in this. The little lady had this, it was a multiple chemical sensitivity is what they called it, but her pesticide was sprayed in her apartment. Next one. And then again, little arm is not growing, all from birth control pills. Next one. And Fred, brain tumor. Now, I just had a $300,000 test here in the last 2 years. I had an MD lawyer that decided that I was a fraud, so he sued me after he spent $300,000. He threw in the towel because he didn't realize that I had documentation of everything I've done. About run out of time here, so we'll have to conclude with that. And as I say, we have some pictures out there across the hallway, some of the colored shots. We've invested in a color copier so we can provide those to you. So our compliments, and keep up the good work, and God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
I'm sorry, but this really does put the squeeze on these people to try to get everything in 30 minutes, but we're trying to get as much overview as we can to you in the time available. Thanks very much, Doctor. I appreciate your sharing some more things with us. He mentioned...
You'll put that on Bob? You'll put that on Bob.
He mentioned seizures, and that reminded me that I want to bring you as up to date as I am. It has been reported to me that Bob Fletcher, whom you may remember from previous years being here with us as a speaker, had a severe seizure about 2 months ago, so severe that he broke a collarbone. Beck, back with us again this year after about 10 times. Go ahead.
Is this the host mic? Yeah. I wish that what I'm going to talk about were my invention. It is not. It was discovered accidentally by two doctors, Wyman and Kali, K-A-A-L-I, at the Einstein College of Medicine in New York City, and surprisingly enough, immediately suppressed. They discovered that by putting a small current, 50 to 100 microamperes, through blood, everything that didn't belong there was eliminated. When they applied for a patent, which was issued in 1993, they had to supply massive documentation to the patent examiners before they were given the patent. A patent, a U.S. patent, is a legal document. What they discovered, and then I suppose this was suppressed by the pharmaceutical houses, because if you talk to them now, I see Clarence Robbins in here earlier and a few other friends, they'll deny it. Yet you can go to a patent office, get a copy of the patent, which we have right here, and you'll see that this was probably the most remarkable medical discovery in this generation. Originally, it was developed to fight HIV, the AIDS virus. This is where we came in. I thought, if this can handle this pandemic problem, let's go for it. We have found lately that we have over 200 cancer remissions. We cannot use the word cure, which made us rethink the entire problem. Right now, and this is 1996, we feel that the adversary has grown with us since the beginning of time. For the last 20 million years, our blood cells, our blood plasma, has carried 140 known parasites. You can check this with any medical doctor, parasitologist in America. If you live in the Northern Hemisphere in the USA, your body carries the majority of 140 different parasites. That is the adversary. If you live in Africa, you're carrying about 500. They're typically about 2 pounds. This came as quite a surprise to me, but when I talked to Emil Levin, MD, 2 pounds of parasites of which you were unaware. The problem with Ebola, for example, in Africa, is that it kills people too rapidly, so that a person can get on an airplane, he'll be dead by the time he lands in New York City, and he can't spread the disease. This is one of the very few things in the world that will eliminate Ebola, hantavirus, hundreds of maybe discovered ones, and maybe there are dozens of new ones that have not been discovered. Now, the problem, and you'll get into this in the workshop, we have the patents here. For the people listening to the tape, this is patent number 5188738, February 23rd, 1993. The Albert Einstein, the Harvard, MIT, all of the big medical organizations tried to hang on to the money here. And this shows the blood taken out of one arm. This is a forearm. This is a little tube like 2 small electrodes about this far apart that go directly into the blood. The blood is inserted into the opposite arm, similar to dialysis. And this cures almost anything known to science. The other approach, which is thoroughly mentioned in this patent, copies are available if you want them, shows a little micro chamber with a miniature battery where your arm is surgically opened. This is sewn into the blood vessel, the ulnar artery, and every few months it has to be taken out, the battery changed and moved like a heart pacer battery. This costs $20,000 to $50,000. You have to sit in a chair like in chelation for about 4 hours a day and do this for months before the blood is clean. Well, a perfectly obvious approach to using this medical breakthrough is to leave the blood in the body, put the 2 small electrodes, they can't be more than 3/32 of an inch in diameter. All of this is in your instructions. The electricity goes directly over the 2 branches of the ulnar, ULNAR, artery, not vein. Arteries take the blood from the heart to the tissue. Veins take it back, where you feel your pulse points. This works in 3 weeks. This costs less than a package of Wrigley's chewing gum. I paid $1.08 for this at the Orange County Airport before I left. This $1.08 will cause spontaneous remissions in about 2 patients before you have to change the batteries. We have absolute miracles. About 12 people who are in this room right this minute have come up to me in the last few days and said, "Bob, my son was dying of HIV. He was under 24-hour-a-day care. He's back at work now." We have them in Los Angeles that took 2 people, 2 men, to lift them and set them on the potty if they weren't using a bedpan, were dying. And these people are back at work. Their PCR tests may or may not reflect HIV in the blood. If you're a medical doctor, we will show you the PCR tests from a hospital in Huntington Beach. If you're not a medical doctor, before you see the massive documentation which we have in my possession, you will have to sign a patient disclosure agreement, because these studies have been refused by the major medical publications. I wonder why. For 25 cents per patient, you can cure almost anything known. Do the pharmaceutical houses want this information out there in the world? We have run a number of IRBs. I've been in responsible charge of IRBs, Investigational Review Board studies, by reputable hospitals that had staffs of MDs, that finally in one hospital they called me in shortly before I came here, and they said, "Bob, you've got to lie. You've got to tell people this doesn't work." Why is this? They're frightened to death of the Food and Drug Administration. It's that simple. You know that the FDA employees, when they get too old to function, are automatically arabesqued directly into high-paying jobs in the pharmaceutical cartels. I think this is disgusting. The reason I'm out of jail right now is that I have nothing for sale, I never have, and I won't. We're giving the information away. I am not selling anything. We published the full schematic diagrams and all of the parts list in this paper in 1991. The schematic tells you how to build the unit for yourself, and our intrepid photographer is right on the job. Thanks, George. On the back is a parts list in plain English. If you don't know what a resistor is, or a capacitor, or a soldering iron, you set this on the counter at Radio Shack and hope that the clerk there has been to high school and he'll give you the parts. I want to remind you that you can build your own device for about $30. You don't have to buy them. But some people are too stupid, too lazy, too ignorant, or too intimidated by the system to build their own. So there are a number of companies in America, and I know some of them, that make kits that you can buy and have any 10-year-old child who reads and writes the English language put together. We have the papers available. Jane, will you stand up for a minute? We're selling these for what it cost me to Xerox. She'll be outside of the door. We want to clear the room when I finish talking. Take back your power. This gives you the... We're not delivering these things on September the 23rd, 1996. We're not talking about the promise of arrival. There isn't anything you have to do. It is available now. It's free if you build, well, practically free, the price of a package of chewing gum. It used to be a nickel. We're out of hand on this. If you take back your own power, I hate to say this out loud, but I'm in good company, you do not need doctors, nurses, pharmaceuticals, drugs, herbs, homeopathic nosodes. I lectured to the AAABEMS, American Academy of Acupuncture and Bioelectronic Medicine, and I thought these people are New Age holistic practitioners. They'd be interested in these things. This was in Honolulu, Hawaii, early this year. They wanted to stone me to death. They don't want to let go of their thousands of little bottles of nosodes. They make their living selling homeopathic remedies. They're no further ahead, in my opinion, than the medical doctors who make their living selling X-ray, surgery, radium, chemotherapy. Jane, by the way, who has the papers, had a metastasized cancer through her lymph system. Her daughter, who is a petroleum engineer, was very angry when she said, "No, I'm going to use the blood cleaning." On her last CAT scan, Last biopsy, she had no trace of cancer whatsoever. So she's sitting here, she's one of the very few patients willing to come forward before these are published in the JAMA, the New England Journal of Medicine, etc. But I have the data, it's in my briefcase upstairs. If you have a need to know, we can show you PCR, polymerase chain reaction tests, of a number of former AIDS patients who have no HIV detectable in their blood. This is a fact, not fiction. It will not be delivered next year, next month. It is here now. It's available to any of you who want to look. But what's the catch? There's a terrible problem. Number one, my dear friend, well, I won't mention his name, who's a medical psychologist in Port Richey, Florida, when I was discussing this with him, his own wife was dying of cancer. I sent him down a free unit. By the way, I've supplied all of these units for absolutely free, no money, and I've supplied the batteries to the hospitals who were bold enough to test this, and it always worked. He said, Bob, 85% of the population has a death wish. What do you mean? Well, before they were 4.5 years old, somebody told them that they were born under original sin. They were cast out of the Garden of Eden. They'll get to heaven only if they suffer enough, and the more they suffer, the closer they're going to get to sit to the right hand of God. They want to die. They're protecting their secondary gains. This guy's kids aren't screaming at him. His wife is bringing him chicken soup. He doesn't have to go to work and compete with the younger engineers. He's over 60. He's glad he has cancer. It's a sociably acceptable way out. Here are the women who have a problem, and that is their having this. They'll tell you about their many, many surgeries, their problems, and live like queen for a day on the sympathy. Take back your own power. You have within your power a method now to reverse problems that have been with us for about 20 million years, and that is parasites, bacteria, pathogens, viruses, fungus, which you can seldom see in the blood. If you do not believe this, we spent the day 2 days ago, spent several hours with Michael Coyle in Boulder, who has been doing dark field microscopy for a number of years. He sells dark field phase contrast microscopes. A chap through that door in the next room in booth 13 is selling probably the best unit in America. I have no interest whatever in his company. He's in booth 13. He has immortal blood. Anybody in this room can verify this phenomena by going to a dark field microscopist, having his blood test made before doing blood electrification. About a month later, you can see the thousands of pathogens swimming in your blood plasma that are occupying your immune system full time. We discovered a top secret event which is included in your paper. These cost us about $3 for the papers, so we're trying to get our money back from the Xeroxing. I'm going to blow the whistle on this. This was from a book brought in just 2 weeks ago called The Secret War Against the Jews. It was written by a researcher, Mark Ahrens. You can read this for yourself. On page 293 and 294, it discloses the fact that at the end of World War II, a lot of the countries were scared. The Soviet Union thought the Nazi army was going to march on them and take Moscow. The Japanese were scared. The Koreans, the Czechoslovakians, and there was a tremendous flurry of work on biological warfare agents, bacterias, We believe that a number of these bacterias that Peter Kawaja, who didn't show up here, is talking about were genetically engineered, back engineered, are being held in vast quantities, and he'll tell you the address of the building in Florida where these things can be seen, where you can see the building. You can't get near there. It's surrounded by a safe area. He put in the security, and then he decided to blow the whistle, so they killed his wife, burned down his house, the IRS seized his property. Well, that's a long story. I'd rather you heard it from Peter Kawaja himself. What did they discover? They discovered a substance called molvidin, M-O-L-V-I-D-Y-N, which destroyed all of the bactericides, destroyed all of the genetically engineered weapons that they were using for biological warfare. It was so sensitive that they declared this top secret. The Soviets tore down the plant in Czechoslovakia, moved everything in that plant behind the Iron Curtain, kidnapped the scientists, classified this top secret. The information was just discovered a few years ago after the Cold War had cycled down. What was it? Silver colloid. They found that the silver colloid killed every single one of 650 known pathogens, and a hell of a lot that hadn't been discovered until a few years ago. Hantavirus, Ebola, there are a number of them. You can make your own, a better quality than you can buy from anyone, because the people, well, I won't make them mad. For a penny a gallon, you can make a silver colloid that you can't buy because you're not going to put preservatives in it. There are people here who put honey in it, who put EDTA, who put Knox gelatin to keep it from precipitating. You can see it in there with a laser light. I'll show you in the workshop. We'll teach you how to make your own. You can make a device for about $10 that will make all the colloid you and your cats and your horses and your farm animals can possibly use for under a penny a gallon. The water costs 800 times more than the colloid. You could pay 80 cents a gallon for distilled water in the supermarkets in LA. The colloid costs 1/10 of a cent a gallon. That's 800 times more for the water than the medicine that cures everything. Take back your power, children. Make your own colloid. Don't buy it. You can make it in 3 minutes out of any glass of water, tap water, soup, Anchor Steam beer, anything that has water in it, and you'll get well. We have people who have pets. The cats won't even drink. They're drinking water now without the masters putting a little colloid in it. And the cats aren't going back to the veterinarians every month with the infections they've had for years and years. We have people who've recovered on nothing but colloids. Now, the problem here, when we began getting these very unexpected cancer cures, this was a total shock to me. Why are these people reporting clean biopsies, clean CAT scans, etc.? We thought about it. We talked to oncologists. They said, why, certainly. We have cadavers we carve up in medical school that by proven autopsies have had cancer several times in their lifetime. These are guys we bought from the cadaver seller. This guy died on Main Street with a bottle of Thunderbird under his arm. And he's had cancer 16 times during his lifetime, and he's never been to a doctor, and it's healed. God gave us an immune system that'll take care of almost anything that's wrong with us. If we take the adversaries to the immune system out of the blood, out of the plasma, out of the tissue, out of the nerve cells, out of the lymph system, they're going to get well. What happens here? Give me some scientific data. Well, look, a few years ago we were selling interleukin, interferon, human interferon, for about $50,000 a gram. But people couldn't afford that. So we tried to genetically engineer it and have a universal cure for cancer. It didn't work. We had to go back to the human extraction. Your everybody in this room, regardless of your age, your immune systems will produce over 2,000 known, this is according to my friend Norm Shealy, who died recently, 2,000 known neuropeptides. The Creator left this backdoor way to kill off the adversary. How did these biblical people live to 900 and some years old if this existed? They were in a dry climate. The parasites weren't quite what they are today. We travel around a lot. We spread these things that we pick up in Vietnam, other places. Your immune system can restore almost anything that's wrong with you if it doesn't have a full-time battle on its job. So go to your dark field microscopist after you've done this for about 3 weeks. It was just discovered about a year ago that the blood under the cover slip on the microscope slide, 2 months. This is Michael Coyle speaking. He's the #1 dark field microscopist. You know him, C-O-Y-L-E. 2 months after the blood was drawn, he had some slides in the toxic waste disposal bin, and there were a couple of them that looked bright orange instead of dark red. He put it on this microscope, looked at it, found that the blood had not crenated, the fibrinogen reaction had not set in, it had not clotted, it had not oxidized, the blood had circled the wagon, the moisture couldn't evaporate from that little 2-millimeter circle in the center. That blood was still swimming around and alive, and there were no bacteria in the background eating on those cells the minute the person's blood was taken out of his body. So we had to rearrange our thinking about why in the world this thing worked. We know it does work empirically. We know the adage, if it's working, don't fix it. But why did Mike, for example, be one of the 17 people now who've done these tests and have the proof, have it photographed? Why is his blood immortal? Maybe our immune system did make us to live several hundred years old before we had this life and death struggle going on in our blood system, even as we speak. So we have 3 minutes there. Okay, we're going to get it all in, and we're going to leave time for a break. Come to the workshop. It's going to be Monday morning. Dean said, Bob, have you got anything new? I said, my God, we have a stack of IRB reports this high, and we can show them to any licensed MD. I recognize Gary Gordon and a couple of others in the audience. We cannot show them to the general public before these are published in medical journals. This is illegal. It will spoil the entire studies, and these hospitals have put a lot of time and effort on these reports. What have I got, 5 minutes there? The 5-minute sign has just come up, but we do have the evidence. When I came out here about 3 years ago, it was mostly wishful thinking. All we had was a few dozen AIDS patients that were back at work. Now we have women coming forth with lupus cures. They have their blood tests, they come to meetings, they show the tests around, people cheer. One lady, Linda Wright, had had lupus for about 10 years. She was bedridden part of the time. After she got the clean blood test, her doctor was amazed. He'd never seen a full recovery from lupus, and this is like dozens of other diseases. And she is back at the mall, spending her money and breaking her lover. Anyway, there's a good news and a bad news side on each side of this. Now listen to the message, not the messenger. I borrowed this material and made it practical, made it in vivo instead of in vitro. If you hold things in your palms, which are for sale at several tables here, it will not work. Find an IV nurse who will put a couple of hypodermic needles into your ulnar artery about 6 inches apart. Use an AC microvoltmeter, and we tell you all about how to do this. Any child can do it in your paper. It is here now. We don't want dealers. We don't want to sell anything. We're giving this to you, and you can do it yourself if you can read and write English. and look at the current in your blood. It requires 50 to 100 microamperes, which it says so right on the meter. Don't take anybody's word for anything. Do it yourself, and if you're a skeptic, you will find that you're much better. Now, what's wrong with this? Well, you have 1 minute. I'm going to tell you the negative side. 85% of the people who have diseases have a hidden unconscious agenda of a death wish. Number two, this discovery is so preposterous, so outrageous, such a breakthrough that nobody believes it. So if you don't believe it, you're in the majority. I was beaten up by the ACT UP people in New York in February. I had to use the service elevators. I could not use the front door of the New Yorker hotel. Number three, well, we'll tell you about that in the workshop, but you'll find you have some of these symptoms. If you can overcome this disbelief and actually try this, you'll find that the airplane flies. It is probably the greatest health breakthrough. I've been in this area for 40 years. After losing about 120 pounds, all of my hair growing back, my libido going off scale, my health being incredible now. I took 35 years off my chronological age. By the way, the weight loss only works for about 30% of the people who are carrying this particular virus, which has altered your hypothalamus and the apostat and storing the food for them, not you, like we fatten up feed cattle. Come to the workshop. We'll get into this in depth. We'll show you some things hands-on. My time is up. Thank you for being here. We have a lot of new information. And see Jane, who'll be in the hall, and you can get all of this information now.
Hold it. Hold it. Thank you, Bob.
Oh, look at this, Dean.
Wait a minute.
Thank you.